Hi everyone, it's Marco from the DeGroot Finance and Investment Council, and today I wanted to teach you our introduction to Excel. Today's agenda, we're going to go through the basics, lookups, and then lookup alternatives that are a lot more powerful and you'll find a lot of use in the working world. This agenda is interactive, so if you end up clicking on something, it'll take you to that page. So let's click on the basics and we'll start there. We have the income statement for McMaster University. And the first thing that I want to teach you guys is how to copy paste properly. So we'll look at this formula here where we have revenue and we have revenue growth. If I click F2, all this is going to tell me is what's going on inside of the formula and what cells are being referenced. So we can see here it's just saying 425 less 400,000 divided by 400,000, and that's giving us a simple growth rate. Now, what I want is the growth rate for all of the years projected after 2012. So before we end up doing that also, I want to make a side note. Please do not use your mouse throughout any of these tutorials. I really want you to get comfortable using the hotkeys as well as shortcuts. Just because when you're in the working world, this is really going to simplify your life and make everything a lot better. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the wrong way to do this. If I were to do Command C and then do Command V, sure, it pastes the formula over, but as you can see, it also pastes the formatting. So the border here got messed up, and then the growth rates here also had the color carry over. I just want the formula. So if I do Command C and I do Alt ESF, that's going to bring me to paste special formulas, and I just click enter, and there we go. So now we can see the color didn't carry over and the border is still fine. So this is really the ideal copy paste combination. And you can see I could do a lot of different things with this. So if I were to do Command C and then highlight here, Alt ES, so that's going to bring me to the paste special. And now I have the option to filter through a lot of different things. So if I want just the values, formats, comments and notes, etc. So this is a really good thing to be familiar with, Alt ESF. Under the cost of revenue, I want you to practice that yourself here. So again, I'll show you on revenue growth. We do Command C, I highlight the area, Alt ESF, and I just hit enter, and there we go. So pause the video here and take a second to practice for yourself. Okay, so now that you had some time to practice yourself, I'll just show you again. I do Command C. Again, what this is doing, cost of revenue as a percentage of revenue, it's dividing our cost of revenue divided by revenue. I'm just going to do Command C, highlight the area, Alt ESF, okay, and it's going to paste. So that's great. Now we want to do gross margin. So I'm going to show you another way to copy, and this is using Command or Control R. So actually that is an error there. I keep on thinking that I'm still using my Mac, but I'm on a PC. We're really focused on Control. So Control and Alt are very powerful keys, and you're going to use it a lot. So let's look at this gross margin. What's it doing? I click F2 and it's telling me it's taking our gross profit and it's being divided by revenue. So we want to see this increasing over time, and we're going to check if that's actually happening. So the normal way to do this is what I just showed you, is just do Alt ESF, formulas over, and we're good to go. But there are alternative copy paste functions. So I could do simply just Command R. All that is telling me with Control R is that it is taking the formula, copying it to the right. So if I wanted to do this for this whole section here, I would just highlight it, including the cell that you want the formula to carry over, do my Control R, and it's going to autofill that for me, and I can just make sure, yep, it's doing it right. Now, the issue with this is it does take the formatting over. So if you're working in a income statement like this and you don't want the formatting or like the borders carried over, you're not going to want to use Command R. It's better for raw data. But then again, it is fast and it is convenient. So you can pause here and you could practice doing Control R for the SG&A expense as a percent of revenue. Okay, great. So again, I'll just show that here on gross profit or gross margin. I bring it over and I just do Control R, and it's going to mess with my formatting. So if I wanted to fix this, I would highlight it, right? The first thing I would do is I would do Alt H, which is home. I want to change the font color, so I'm going to change FC, and I want to change it to black. So I'm just going to scroll through till I get black, and there we go. And then we can also see that the border slightly got messed up. So if I do Alt H B right, which is going to be the R, that's going to fix the border for me. So now let's do this again using copyright. So I'm going to highlight the area here. Now I'm going to do Control R, and again, my formatting's messed up, so I want to fix this. So let's just focus on cell H14. First, we'll do the font color. So I'll do Alt H FC. I want black, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll just filter through here, select black, and a shortcut, instead of highlighting the whole range, let's say you just needed to do this on one cell and then a cell that's a few cells over, you just hit F4. So if I just change the color, FC, change it to black. F4 is the short key to actually continue doing the function. So what I'll do here is, again, I'll just copy this over, change the font, and now again I want the border. So if I do Alt H B right, it's going to fix the border. So that's great. So you can see why Alt ESF is preferred, but I just wanted to show you copyright just as another way of doing things. Now we're going to finish off the basics with sum and auto sum. So what I would do here is I type equals sum bracket. I would then take my mouse, and sorry, not my mouse, my arrow keys, go one up. I would click shift and then up and hold shift until I get to the top. I would then put a bracket around, and that's sum. There's a lot faster way to do this. So what I could just do is Alt plus equals. So the plus equal key is usually right above where your numbers are before the backspace. And if you hit this in combination, it does an auto sum, which is really great. So we did the auto sum. Now this is where you use that copy paste, Alt ESF, and there you go. So now we have McMaster's income statement filled out using some really simple but helpful tips. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to go to lookups. So all I do is I do page down by doing Control page down. I'm not using my mouse. There's no need to use your mouse, okay? So we're going to look at two very popular formulas, which is the HLOOKUP and the VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP is more used, to be honest, but there is some scenarios where you'll be using HLOOKUP, and this is one of them, and I really wanted to highlight that. So let's take a look at how to use HLOOKUP. So you enter equals HLOOKUP, and we have some categories here. So we want the lookup value. The lookup value is going to be our ticker symbol, which is DFIC. We're going to anchor that down by hitting F4. So you can see we have the dollar signs around the C and around the 6. That's ensuring that this cell isn't going to shift around. The next thing that we need is the table array. In our case, we have this information here, and this is our table. So I'm just going to select all the way down to beta. And again, I'm just going to anchor it down. Then I want to know my row index number. So I'm going to select this 2 up here. I'm going to anchor it so it's only shifting around the second row, and I'm going to explain in a second why we have 2. Then I want a exact match, so I'm going to hit 0. In most cases, you're going to always use 0. So if I do that, it returns DeGroote Finance and Investment Council. So let's take a look at this 2. what H lookup essentially is doing is it's a horizontal lookup. So it's seeing DFIC, it's going, so this is cell number 1, this is cell number 2. So it's going to the second cell down, and it's returning the value there. For us, the value is DeGroote Finance and Investment Council, and it's pulling back the company name. So now I want to find the share price, and this is where it's really useful. So the share price, if we go all the way down, if I just scroll down, we can see it is current share price, 100.73. So if I just shift up from DFIC, we can see that it's 40 cells down. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to simply just copy this formula over. So I do Command C, Alt ESF, and there we go. It's returning the share price. Since we anchored down C6, that is our ticker. We also anchored down the range, so the range isn't moving around. We then anchored down the column 2, or row 2 that is. So it's just shifting from 2 to 40 to 57, 58, etc. And then we got an exact match. So I just copy this over and I do Alt ESF. And there we go. So that got us all the numbers, and we can see revenue trailing 12 months. Yep, that's it. 137. So that's a really useful function. The next one I want to show you is VLOOKUP, vertical lookup. And again, very useful, but there's a caveat to it. So if I want to find the share price, or let's do revenue actually, because that's what I have in cell B7. I do equals VLOOKUP. I then take the lookup value, which is revenue. I'll just lock that down. I then take the table array. So in our case, we're really looking here, right? I'm just going to select this data, and it really doesn't matter. Like I could select from here down. Okay, lock that down. And now I need to know how many columns I'm going to the right from revenue. So when we were looking at a H lookup, horizontal lookup, we started from the initial cell, which was DFIC, and then we started going down. Now we're going a vertical and across. So from revenue, we have revenue as 1, space as 2, old partial as 3, new partial as 4, FY as 5, and trailing 12 months is 6. So I enter 6. Again, I want an exact match, which is 0. Enter in the bracket, and there we go. It's going to bring back this same number. And let's say I wanted to format it as up here, right? I could just do Control 1, and that's going to bring me to format cells. I think this is actually under accounting or currency. I'm not too sure. And then I just hit OK. No decimal places. Or just use the format painter, and there we go. So that's 2 ways to use VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Again, we're going to go over VLOOKUP in the index match introduction. HLOOKUP is not as popular, but this is a good scenario if you're on the DFIC investment team where you will be using it. So let's go to the index match intro. Here, we're looking at VLOOKUP. So we have data, month, and sales, and I want to show you how to pull this data using different formulas and why VLOOKUP is great, but not for all scenarios. So if I do equals VLOOKUP, what I'm going to do is I want the lookup value, which is going to be March. The table array, well, this is our table, the month and the sales. Lock that down. Column index, we know that its sales is in the second. So it goes month 1, sales 2. And then I just hit 0 for an exact. And there we go. I can confirm this sales for March right there, 1,200, okay? So now let's use index and see what happens. If I do index, it's going to ask for an array. So our array, again, is going to be the table. Now we want March. So row number, March is in the 4th row, and sales column is in the 2nd column. So that's going to bring us the same thing. So you can see, first of all, why VLOOKUP in isolation is better than an index, because all we had to do was look up March inside of this table, and then we knew that sales was the 2nd column, and the formula itself started at month, went down to March, and then it went to the 2nd column, which was sales. But when we're doing index, we actually needed to know that March was in the 4th row and sales was in the 2nd row from there. So it's not always that easy to use. So let's take a look at match. So if I do equals match, the lookup value, again, March, the lookup array, so this is going to be different. I'm only looking at March in here. And I want an exact match, so I'm going to equals 0. And there we go. So this is telling us what we already knew. So when we did index, we knew that March was in the 4th row down from the top. When we do match, it's telling us that March is the 4th row down from the top, but it's not actually pulling back the sales, which is an issue. So what we need to do is to use index match together. Now, this is why it's better than VLOOKUP, because in VLOOKUP, we needed to show that we knew that sales was in the 2nd row. But what if we don't know that sales is in the 2nd row? Well, we can combine index. So our array is going to be sales, because this is what I want us to pull back, right? So I'll get that. I'll lock it down, right? Our row number, we don't know, right? So we'll do match. The lookup value is going to be March, which is this cell right here. We can anchor that down. The lookup array is going to be the months. So there we go. And again, yeah, we can lock that down. And then we want an exact match. And there we go. There was an error there. I'm not too sure why. I think it was just because I didn't have the extra bracket. But that's going to give us the same answer. So let's say you have this data and somebody ends up inserting a row here. Well, now we have an issue. And I can show you why. So on VLOOKUP, we're looking in the 2nd column for March sales. Well, there's no data here, so it's not going to give us that anymore. If we look here, if I were to have just used index, well, if I go to the 2nd column here, again, there is no data. Nothing changed for match, but when I use match index together, I'm still able to find the sales from whatever month, even if an extra row gets inserted. And that's really why this formula is powerful, because you never know when you're working if somebody ends up inserting a column or a row. So you can practice that here. Just delete the formulas, go through and try to get the same answers as me. And it's really easy and really intuitive, the formulas. These are great introductory ones. If you guys are interested in these lessons, I can keep on going. Just let us know, and I'll go through like pivot tables, data tables, and some other helpful Excel tutorials. But this was the DFIC Intro to Excel, and thank you for listening.